And ClickUp is an app that streamlines processes in companies. This morning, they dropped some big numbers. They reported $300 million in annual recurring revenue.
Most people need a business plan to start a company. Zeb Evans needed a gun to his head. At 19, a 17-year-old pressed a pistol against his forehead during a home invasion. In that moment, adrenaline, metal on skin, total silence. He got clarity most people spend their entire careers chasing. He dropped out the next day. Not because he had a plan, because he finally understood that doing something that didn't matter with his time was the only real failure available to him. That obsession with time became ClickUp, a $4 billion productivity platform used by Google, Nike, Uber, and over 20 million teams worldwide. Built from nothing.
We were bootstrapped until 2 years ago. So we had started the company with really just 4 or 5 people.
Bootstrapped to $10 million in revenue before a single investor dollar came in, and built by someone who Silicon Valley told, repeatedly, to do it differently. He ignored them. Keep watching to see what he did instead and why it worked. The worst products in the world are built by people who have never experienced the problem they're solving. The best ones are built by someone who was so frustrated by the problem that they stopped waiting for someone else to fix it.
Place them all. That's the familiar messaging that we place. But the reality is, we're not trying to replace every single application. We do think that we can put all of your workplace productivity software in one place, and that is ultimately our true mission.
Before ClickUp existed, Zeb Evans was running a company called Mango Technologies in San Diego. His team was using 15 different productivity tools simultaneously. Asana for tasks, Slack for communication, Google Docs for documents, spreadsheets for tracking, and on and on. Every tool solved one piece of the problem and created 3 new ones. Switching between apps was eating hours every week. He challenged his team to build an internal tool in a month that consolidated everything. They did, and a strange thing happened. When people outside the company heard about it, they weren't interested in Mango Technologies. They wanted the productivity tool. That's when Zeb knew. Not because of market research, not because of a consultant's report, because he'd built something to solve his own pain.
We built ClickUp with the mission of making the world more productive and giving people more time back. We were frustrated that there was no single workspace tool that could do everything.
And the pain turned out to be universal. This is the rule that almost every great product company gets right, and almost every failing one gets wrong. The founder has to feel the problem personally, not intellectually, not theoretically, in the gut. Every single day, because that frustration is what drives the 1,000 small decisions that make a product actually work, the ones no amount of user research can fully replace. ClickUp wasn't designed in a conference room. It was built out of daily aggravation by someone who was sick of paying for 15 apps to do the job one should handle. The product that built a $4 billion company started as an internal fix for a problem Zeb couldn't stop complaining about.
ClickUp is the only work platform that replaces all productivity software across all departments and enables collaboration with one single application for tasks, docs, chat, goals, and team management.
That's not an accident. That's the formula. Silicon Valley has a standard script for building a startup. Raise a seed round. Use the money to build. Raise a Series A. Use that to grow. Raise more, grow faster. The script works for some businesses. For others, it masks the most important signal a founder can receive, whether the product is actually worth paying for. ClickUp launched in 2017. For the first 3 years, Zeb took no outside investment. He bootstrapped the company entirely to $10 million in annual recurring revenue before a single VC dollar came through the door. That decision was not popular. Investors told him he was leaving growth on the table. Advisors told him competitors would outspend him. The standard playbook said he was doing it wrong. He kept going. What bootstrapping forced was brutal product discipline. There was no money to paper over a weak product with aggressive marketing. Every dollar of revenue had to come from someone choosing to pay for ClickUp over a competitor, not because of brand awareness or a Super Bowl ad, but because the product was worth the money. That pressure made the product better, faster than any VC money could have. Zeb calls the milestone of $10 million.
We actually learned that even just a year after starting, it was about 50% of our business was coming outside of the United States, and 30% of it comes from EMEA right now.
ARR reached without external funding, natural product market fit. The distinction matters. Artificial product market fit is what happens when you use investor money to buy customers before the product is ready. Natural product market fit is when customers find you because the product solves something they'd otherwise pay more for. One of those is real. The other is borrowed time. When Zeb finally took Series A funding in 2020, $35 million from Craft Ventures, he wasn't using the money to figure out if anyone wanted ClickUp. He already knew. He was using it to pour fuel on a fire that was already burning. 3 years, zero outside money, $10 million in revenue. Then he raised. That sequence matters more than the number. There is a piece of startup advice so widely repeated it has become almost sacred. Niche down. Pick one customer. Solve one problem. Be the best in the world at that one thing. It's good advice for a lot of businesses. It was the wrong advice for ClickUp, and Zeb knew it from day one. Every investor, every advisor, every person with an opinion told Zeb the same thing. Stop trying to be everything. Pick a lane. Compete with Asana on project management, or compete with Notion on documents, or compete with Slack on communication, but not all three at once. Nobody wins by going wide. Zeb's thesis was the exact opposite. He believed the fragmentation of the workplace into dozens of disconnected tools was itself the problem. The solution wasn't to build a better version of one tool. It was to build one platform where all the work lived, not one app to rule them all as a marketing line, as a genuine product conviction. The market validated that conviction with its wallet. ClickUp grew because teams were exhausted by tool sprawl and the inefficiency it created. The Alinuent value proposition wasn't a gimmick, it was the core of why people switched. The business rule here is uncomfortable because it contradicts popular advice. Conventional wisdom is useful as a starting point, not as a ceiling. The founders who build category-defining companies almost always ignore at least one piece of consensus thinking that turns out to be wrong. Zeb's contrarian bet was that convergence would beat best of breed. He was right, but he had to hold that position through years of being told otherwise by people with more experience and more money than him. Knowing when the crowd is wrong and you're right is one of the hardest skills in business. It requires having enough conviction in your reasoning, not your ego, to stay the course, when the pressure to pivot is immense. Every advisor told him to niche down. He went wider. 20 million users later, nobody is telling him he was wrong. In 2021, ClickUp raised $400 million in Series C funding. Valuation hit $4 billion. The company went from 100 employees to 800 in 18 months. By any external measure, it was working. Internally, it was almost breaking. In 2023, ClickUp laid off 10% of its workforce. Zeb framed it not as a crisis but as a correction, a deliberate step toward building something sustainable rather than something just big. The IPO is the stated next horizon. Getting there requires the kind of operational discipline that hypergrowth at all costs actively destroys. The lesson is one most people only learn after they've paid for it. The culture that gets a company from $0 to $10 million is not automatically the culture that survives the jump from 10 million to 100 million. The transition requires active management, not the assumption that what worked before will keep working with 5 times the headcount. Hiring fast is easy. Hiring right is the job. The difference between the two shows up in the product, in the customer experience, and eventually in the numbers. $400 million raised, 800 hires in 18 months. Then a layoff to fix what the speed broke. The money didn't cause the problem. The hiring without discipline did. Zeb Evans has had 6 near-death experiences across his life. A childhood boating accident at 10 that left him on morphine and feeding tubes. A seizure in a movie theater. A home invasion at gunpoint. Each one recalibrated how he thought about time, what it was worth, what it cost to waste it, and what kind of work was actually worth doing with it. If that story reframed how you think about building hit-like, it takes a second and it genuinely helps. Subscribe for more videos that cut straight to what actually matters in business. And if someone you know is sitting on an idea but moving slowly, send them this.